Hello, I'm here with,
Coach McCall, Devontae McCall.
and I'm going to be interviewing him for my King's project. A short summary of Daryl Jackson's article is Daryl Jackson's article is explaining the vulnerability and emotional trauma that is of a black boy when they're taught crying is shown for the weak, and how it develops as trauma throughout boyhood into manhood, which then after manhood is fatherhood, they they're gonna end up teaching their children. Um, let's get right into the interview questions then.
All right.
First question: what is the first thing you were taught about crying when you were a boy?
First thing I remember being taught about crying growing up was that boys don't cry, or everything ain't meant for you to cry over as a boy. You know, you're a boy, you're supposed to be tough. There's nothing to cry over. So that's the very first thing I remember as a kid growing up about crying. Boys should not be crying. That's a girl thing to do.
Yeah, I was taught that too, because I'm the only boy in my household, so I'm expected to do everything a man would do.
Yeah.
So I was especially taught boys don't cry. The second question is: can you tell me about a time you felt hurt or betrayed, but chose to walk away rather than talk about it?
There isn't any one specific time that I could just narrow down, but there have been a lot of times where I felt hurt or betrayed in a situation, and instead of jumping into that situation and trying to figure out why that person chose to do what they did that made me feel hurt or betrayed, I just walked away from the situation. And I feel like that could be a good thing. That could also be a bad thing. Because on the good side of it is you learn to pick and choose your battles and understand that everything is not worth your energy or time. On the bad side of it is some things do need to be addressed, and if you have that mindset, you don't address the things that need to be addressed. So I'll say like it's kind of been good and bad for me being able to just walk away from certain situations when I felt like that.
That is true. Just the ability to walk away from certain situations is key, especially like during boyhood, like especially like during middle school.
Yeah, especially during middle school.
Fifth grade, so late elementary, middle school, a bit of high school, not that much.
But I will say it's throughout every stage of your life. If you don't understand what situations to just walk away from and understand that everything doesn't need an explanation and everything doesn't need closure, you're going to have a very stressful life, because again, everything is not worth your time and your energy.
Yep, I'm not gonna lie to you. I wish third through fourth grade me knew that.
Yeah,
because got into a lot of fights.
Yeah, and that's hard. That's hard for an adolescent to get that concept through. That's hard. So you're gonna struggle with that,
especially coming up with a single parent household, being the only boy in the household, and
not having people teach you how to navigate these.
Yes, sir. And then the only man that your parent, well, the only other partner that your parent has brought over, they weren't the best influence, and kind of sort of put a image on what men are supposed to act like, because you've never had that role model.
Yeah.
Who was the first man you ever saw to truly be vulnerable, emotional, and how did that change the view over him? How did that change your view over him?
The first man that I saw be vulnerable, I probably say it would have to be my dad's brother, so my uncle. I remember probably when I was like 12 or something, he got caught up with the law, and it ended up him have been sentenced to some time in prison. And his emotional state was he cried because he was upset the fact that he was about to go in and miss part of his child's life. And the situation that got him in trouble with the law was a situation where he didn't control his emotions. So the result of that, it upset him so much because he understood the mistake that he made, but he also now saw the consequences of that mistake. But seeing how vulnerable he was in that situation, how he talked to each one of his family members before he was actually sent off to do his time, like it really showed me that you can be open as a human being, as a man, not even just as a human being, but as a man, and you can also like show your emotions. So it was unfortunate that that happened to him, but because that happened to him, the way he carried himself throughout the ordeal showed me that it is okay for you as a man to be vulnerable and to be emotionally available to you, to your kids, your spouses, to your family.
I'm not gonna lie to you. I've never had a male father figure within my lifetime. I've never had them be like vulnerable.
Mm-hmm.
The closest thing to that would be at my baby cousin's funeral, but there were only like two men there, and then the rest it was just me and my brother.
It's not something that you see a lot because, like I said, I was able to see that as a 12-year-old going on 13, but besides that one situation, I really can't, besides some things that I've seen on being able to be on social media and listen to all these different things where men talk about their emotions and being vulnerable. Besides that outside stuff on the internet, he was the only one that I had saw. So before getting into technology and finding out all these other people who show that side of them, like that was the one sole time, which is crazy when you live the life of, let's just say, 20 years or 25 years. So, because I've only recently been seeing that on social media where men talk about their emotions and being vulnerable and stuff like that. So, again, I saw it, but it's not a lot of that going on. So,
especially on social media.
Mm-hmm.
What is one thing you want me to know about being a man that isn't just about being tough?
It is okay to be in touch with your emotions. Now, for me personally, I do feel like there is a such thing as being too in touch with your emotions. But being able to maturely navigate your emotions, navigate the emotions of people around you, truly express how you feel, there's nothing wrong with doing that. A lot of people, you tell people how you feel, a lot of people will look at a man and say, you're just whining. That's not what a man's supposed to do. A man's supposed to be tough. A man's not supposed to show any signs of weakness or anything like that. But I don't agree with that. We're human. Yes, we are men. We are supposed to be the leaders in our relationships and our families and all situations. But at the end of the day, we still have emotions. And you can pour so much into people around you, but if you're not being poured into and taken care of, then you're no good to yourself or anybody that's around you. So I would want you to know to be in touch with your emotions and make sure you pour into yourself, because you're no good to yourself or the people around you if you're not filling yourself back up.
I don't see the one takeaway I got from this is be yourself emotionally. Because if you aren't, so there's gonna be so much pent up rage, aggression, depression, all of that, and one day it's just going to snap.
Yeah, you snap, and then also what some people don't realize is that pent up aggression, or to talk about it all, that pent up trauma, you inadvertently end up putting it on maybe your future spouse or maybe your kids. And you just continue this ongoing notion that you can't be emotionally vulnerable. And that's something that we as a society has to break, because that's where we're at now in society. A lot of people don't know how to express themselves. They're not in touch with their emotions. So we make radical decisions without thinking about other people's emotions, our emotions, and the consequences that's involved with them.
Mr. Like last Saturday, I blew up last Saturday because this random white man, while I was in public, was threatening my life.
Yeah.
So since I felt threatened, I ended up blowing up. But I'm glad my friend was there to step me out the building.
Yeah.
Now this may be a white guy, but he understands how we feel, especially with society.
Yeah, being in a situation like that. So yeah, that's good that you had somebody there to understand your struggle as well, and to understand the game of life that we unfortunately have to play. So yeah, man. You got any other questions for me?
Honestly, not really at the moment.
Okay. Well, it was good talking with you, and if you have anything else, just let me know, and I'm open to answer anything for you.
Yes, sir.
All right. Good.